6 o'clock on the 15th. Pursuant to Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, this meeting has been duly advertised in the South Jersey Times and the Sentinel. The municipal clerk of the township has been duly notified, and the requirements of posting of notices have been met. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trish, would you call the roll, please? You have a minute.
Bellis?
Here.
Caselli?
Here.
Changlini?
Here.
Kowalski? Cunningham?
Here.
Doyle?
Here.
Fregoso?
Here.
Michael? Trace?
Here.
Brett?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. As you can see listed, we have the oath of office for Mrs. Karwanski, which we'll skip over with the assumption that she will be arriving shortly. Annual audit. Trish, I'm assuming that's your domain there.
Yeah. Yes, sorry. So in talking with the auditor, they're very busy and were unable to make both either this meeting or the Monday night's meeting. So he sent me the same presentation that they reviewed last year, as well as the synopsis. So if you're going to click on the attachment, just kind of breaks down, reminder that this is the audit of the 21-22 year. The due date has actually changed since Mike sent this. Deadline is now, I believe, March 31st. Because the state continues to be late with GASB 75 information. The independent auditor's reports conducted on page 17 to 20 of the actual audit, which you will find in the March 20th agenda. Unmodified opinion was given, which means the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects as of June 30th, 2022. The report on the internal controls over financial reporting and compliance. No internal control weaknesses were found. The other independent auditor's report on compliance for major program and report on internal control. Typically that's the federal programs that are reviewed. Child nutrition, state aid, and again, that was an unmodified opinion. Within the audit, governmental funds are covered on page 41 and 42. Proprietary funds are 47 through 49. We'll see that the food service ending net position increased by about $240,000 to $441,000. There was a finding regarding the food service fund because you can only have a cash balance of no more than 3 months of your expenses. Given the federal reimbursement rates that were given out based on COVID, basically every district is getting this finding because we had too much money. And we did purchase equipment. All schools received new serving lines, hot and cold, interior, cashier stands, etc. So we'll be looking into seeing what else we can purchase above and beyond that. I think Ritter's freezer is kind of old, so we'll be looking to replace that. But again, the food service funds did very well thanks to the reimbursement rates, which would be able to afford us the new equipment. Page 2 will give you the fund balance summary of the general fund, budgeted versus actual. I won't read all the numbers to you there. Same thing for fund balance at the end of the year. So if you have any questions about the audit, if you want to take a look at this as well as the audit, like I said, from the March 20th attachment, and you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, and if I can't answer it, I can shoot it over to Mike, the auditor. And
do you know why, Trish, in the general fund, which is on the first page, the increase from 253 to 5.8? Like, how that is that from the ESSR funds? Like, how is that from? Because it said it's federal or government funds.
Governmental funds. So the general fund is just the general operating fund. Okay. So it only increased by $253,000 to a final balance.
I got you. Okay, I read that wrong. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yep.
Trish, I'm looking at the synopsis. I don't know if we're all in different documents, but under the assets, it has receivables from other governments. Is that our?
You're on the synopsis, we're on the audit presentation.
Okay. So you want me to go to the audit presentation
Sure.
and find what I'm asking?
We can review the synopsis once we're all caught up on the presentation.
I jumped ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Well, in any event, there was a number of a little over $1 million receivables from other governments. Is that our tuition from Newfield?
No, Newfield is current and has been current on their tuition payments as well as transportation payments. I will take a look at that.
I mean, maybe that's what was open at the time of this audit. They're current now, maybe. I don't know.
No, they weren't that far. Receivables from other governments. Typically in there is the state aid payments because the state aid is pushed off the end of the month of June.
Okay. So a lot of these numbers, these are all as of
June 30th,
June 30th,
2022.
2022.
Yes.
So they could have been received since then, right?
Yes. I can confirm that we did receive the state aid in July for June. And that's every year. They push it back so they can balance the budget.
So did I ask this already, but is Mike coming Monday?
He is not. He is unable to make tonight's meeting as well as Monday's meeting. They do not work in his schedule. He did say that I guess a few other districts just asked him to send the presentation and the synopsis, and if they had any questions, let him know.
Right.
So any questions that I can't answer, I'll be glad to pass on to him and get you a more detailed auditor response.
I mean, I guess to his defense, he usually comes here, gives a presentation, and then we ask no questions. So,
Right. So hopefully the same holds true.
right. Any other questions from anybody? You have now till Monday to.
Yeah, take a look at it. You don't have to rush. And then we'll be asking you to approve and accept the audit on Monday's
On Monday.
meeting agenda.
So is there anything in here, Trish, like any red flags, anything that we should
No,
be
the only thing
focusing
that I
on?
mentioned was the one finding based on food service fund, because you can't have more than 3 months of
We just had-
expenses in a cash balance.
Okay,
But we did purchase new equipment, so we're just gonna have to look for more equipment to purchase.
right.
But again, we weren't the only district to have that. It's pretty standard across the board, given the
Gotcha.
reimbursement rates for the food service fund.
Not exactly related to the audit, but question for you. We have these reserve accounts, capital reserve, maintenance reserve, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Those accounts, are they separate? They're segregated and they're an account?
Yes.
What kind of,
They're not. They're in a, are you talking bank accounts?
well, yeah, bank
No,
wise.
they're all in one operating bank account.
Okay. What kind of interest are we getting on that account, do you know?
The interest averages probably 400, 450 a month. Obviously, they significantly decreased since COVID.
And
Before COVID, they were running about, I'd have to say.
and what is our average daily or average monthly balance in that account?
That I'd have to look on my reports to find. I don't know off the top of my head.
I think we should consider,
The cash reports would have that.
right, you know, with interest rates what they are, consider approaching the bank, even if we have to move that money into a different account, to try to get some more yield on, because it sounds like they're paying us next to nothing, which is what everyone had been paying up until, 8 months ago when the Federal Reserve drastically increased interest rates.
Mhm.
So that's something, we might want to look into. I mean, I know the bank's not going to be happy about that, so. Go ahead, Barb, I'm sorry.
Where is it on either of these three documents? I'm embarrassed I haven't read them, but I didn't think I was going to leave, so I was going to take.
The one document I just left on there because that's the 2021
Yeah.
audit. So just for comparison purposes,
First
yes, fiscal year
But is there
2022.
synopsis to me is, it's all financial here, but I don't see any recommendations listed or any.
So that would be on. That's on the synopsis.
I see school food service, but it doesn't say, oh, there it is. Should
Mhm.
reduce net cash resources, gotcha.
Yes.
That's the only recommendation, basically, in a negative way, if that's even negative.
Right, it was out of my control
Yeah,
without
Right, okay, just, that's
buying
the
things and
only,
just hoarding them.
because I was looking just for the list, usually they say this,
Correct.
Thank you.
Clayton had that too, same thing.
I know you said it 5 times, but it's just.
Any other questions on the audit? Anything else to add, Trish, or
No?
good to move on?
Yep.
All right, public comment. I make a motion, we open to the public for any comments. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Morris is the only member of the public here this evening. Do you have any? No comments? Make a motion to close the public comment section. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? We do have the necessity for a brief executive session. I want to bring you guys up to date on where we're at with the negotiations, both with the TFEA and the administrators. And is there personnel as well?
Yeah, well, we just got to review
Just review the personnel agenda
and
for
actually,
Monday.
Trish has a couple of things as well.
And contract litigation negotiation, which I guess is probably Trish's thing. So with that, make a motion. We move into executive at 6:11. Do I have a second? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Sorry, Bill. We're going to have to.
Okay, so here is our annual budget summary. Just as a reminder, it's really kind of broken down into 3 parts. They're just some general consideration, just general knowledge stuff, and fairly similar to years past. Then we go, obviously, into the expenditure side, which I'll review, and then Trish will review the revenue side. So again, it's pretty systematic if you have questions, and some questions may need to wait to be answered until Trish gets to the revenue side. All right, so long story short, page 2 is just a letter that I put to the board each year, just reminding you when our district public hearing is, and just kind of telling you the process for the budget construction, so you can read that at your leisure. Page 3 is the budget timeline that you guys approved back in October. We put a little check marks next to where we are. So just a reminder that we're reviewing the budget tonight. On Monday, you'll be asked to vote on it, but you're only voting to submit it to the county for review. Okay, the public hearing is at the April 24th meeting, and that's when you'll actually be adopting the budget. Page 4, so this is where we start getting into our general budget considerations. Again, very similar from years past. All the things that we take in consideration while we're constructing, and these are all the things that I press my principals and supervisors when they're building their budgets as well. Certainly our district goals, I just reminded you of where our iReady stretch goal, what that was this year. So that's really just a snapshot of what you guys had already approved. That's on page 4. Page 5, of course, we look at the strategic planning. Certainly the 5 areas that are listed there. Just as a point of reference, we list those 5 areas and just remind you that we have a web page with all of the updates and then the periodic updates that are presented at the board meeting, which on this month will be social emotional learning. Will be providing an update for you. Moving down, the grant funded initiative. So this is past and present. So these are some of the things that we have purchased with the grant funds. Trish has a whole chart in her portion of this that shows you where we are with the grant funds. The grant funds will dry up after next year. So certainly keeping that in mind as we move forward. We also keep in mind and reference the mid-year budget review that we receive from the DOE, the county office. So each year we need to go to meet with the county office. We review where we are from current spending standpoint. We go over, academic performance and some of the other things that we are doing here as a district. And then the office will send us a budget review letter. Page 6 is a copy and paste from that letter. This isn't my wording, this is their wording. And you can see references some statute with their review. Goes through suggesting that our school budget review worksheet, that we're taking a look at that 3-year budget review worksheet, which Trish has. Taking a look at our square footage We feel this is a positive thing, although they list it, I don't say as a negative, but we're under that 17.5 square foot from a custodial standpoint, which is again, we view as a good thing.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So they use 17.5 as the standard. So when
Per
you're looking
custodian?
per custodian, so
Okay.
when you're looking at square foot of a building, say it's 300,000 divided by 17.5, and that's how many custodians you should have.
Okay.
Ours are doing less than that.
Okay.
She continued put.
I don't mean to stop you. So they're
No.
saying that we should have less custodians?
Yes.
No, they're saying we should actually have less.
Less.
Yes.
We should have fewer custodians.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So again, we're viewing it as a positive thing.
Right.
What, do you know what the actual square footage is per custodian?
I don't off the top of my head. I don't know.
I'll find it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trish
Thank
can
you.
probably
More.
grab that.
One pool less person, or is it just like quartering?
It's teetering.
It's
Okay.
teetering, but it's not as simple. You know, you got 3 buildings, you got square. It's not as simple. It might be like a 3.14 at
Plus
this
this
building and
building,
3.7 at that.
plus
It's not as
It's
simple
not
as
a
just saying.
gross number though that,
Well, it says
Oh, good stuff.
considerably. So I would like to know what their definition of considerably
yeah.
is.
We're gonna start cleaning this room.
Yeah, I'll be. Pick that one up, Bart. Thanks.
Tell the teachers they got to clean their classrooms then. That'll go over well.
Oh yeah, that'll go real well. Continue down with the bullets, of course. Their recommendation is certainly, the raise the tax levy to 2% and use all banked cap. And then she here goes through and talks about some of the stuff that we're doing with the social emotional. They were actually here that day that the news was here in regards to our English language learners and the devices that we purchased. So giving us a little pat on the back there, and certainly reminding us that we need to make sure that we align our curriculum with the New Jersey content standards. So that's coming directly from the county office.
Can I do something on that story?
Sure.
Basically, in terms of the tier support and IRS and so forth,
Mhm.
how that benefits special education costs. We have a higher percentage of special education kids than the state average. Do you know
We
how
do.
much? Yeah. Do you know how much it is? Like what the difference is?
It's only a couple percent, but this year it went up in regards because we had quite a few, and you're going to see when Trish gets into the cost, our special ed costs went up significantly, and it was due to children moving in as much as a few kids getting classified from within.
Well, and I guess I'm wondering what we're looking at in terms of internally with these two systems, what they can do to better alleviate that.
Well, I think it's more data driven, to be honest. I mean, they're really doing a pretty good job of taking a look at all the data points rather than just one or two, and getting really it's all about securing that tier 1 and getting those classroom teachers to modify and individualize and differentiate. So they're the conversations that are going
So
on.
our percentage went up from last year's special ed.
It did.
Okay.
I want to touch on something real quick. When was this letter, this mid-year review? What is the date on that?
We met in January, and she actually just sent the letter to me.
So
Literally just like last week. I can get the exact date, but it's
okay, because it says especially because your district will be receiving decreased state aid. She obviously wrote this letter after the state aid numbers came out.
Yeah,
okay.
or she had inside information. Right.
And then it also goes on to say that we have not increased the tax levy at all in several years, which that's an incorrect statement, I believe. That's not accurate?
That's not.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Last year we did a little.
Last year
Wow.
we did.
Before it was.
Quite a bit we did, yeah.
So that's again, copy and paste from the letter that was sent from the county office.
One more question. It
Sure.
says, bottom it says, as always, it's necessary for your district budget sufficient resources to align your curriculum to current New Jersey content standards. Are we not currently doing that?
No, we are. It's just really just
Boilerplate.
a reminder. Yeah, it's probably a bullet that's in there every year.
Okay.
Of course, we take in consideration district enrollment. This is a very, very, very simplified table, to be honest with you. This is just literally taking the numbers, moving them forward a grade using the same number of projected homerooms to get you class size. It does get a little bit more complex when you get in the 5th and 6th grade with the movement of individual classes. So this is, you can just see where we're going and where we were. The efficiency efforts here, this is a pat on the back to Trish. Some of the things that she puts in place just to try to save us money, and they're all listed there. A lot of consortiums there. Getting into that health insurance fund, which we were in when she came aboard, but that's certainly important. And we're going to go over the actual increase as compared to what the state increase was. So we're certainly benefiting from that. Okay, so part 2 is really the highlight of the expenditure. So I'm going to give the summary, and then Trish is going to give you the dollars and cents. Okay, so we'll walk our way through this. So we're on page 8. So future planning. So if you take a look on here, I'm just kind of reminding the board that it is a struggle to attract teachers and retain certified staff. I'm not telling you anything new. I'm just reminding you that continues to need to be our number one priority. They're our most valuable resource, and unfortunately right now we're losing them in droves.
Now, this is your words.
These are my words. Yep. These are my words, my recommendations. And then all it's really going to do, Leah, is just summarize the things that were put into the budget.
Okay.
So I went through just a couple of things as far as supporting the strategic plan. So the talent acquisition and retention, of course, is salary driven. But, we are also, we do have funds in the budget to attend our job fairs and, some other advertising avenues if need be. SEL, they put minimal funds in there. They're going to take a look at a possible SEL curriculum, and they will be reporting out to you on Monday in that regard. So that committee's report will be on Monday for you. Facilities and finance, Trisha's going to go over the capital reserve funds. We have those ROD grants that are out there that we certainly want to take advantage of. So we'll be putting capital reserve money into this budget because, again, we want to take advantage of, up to 40% that the state will pay. From a curriculum and instruction standpoint, as far as tied to the strategic plan, looking at funds to support that time in district, that's their main goal, to take a look at the transition piece and how well our kids that are with us over time are doing. And then the communication, not a whole lot in the budget, really just budgeting to continue with the current district and school communication methods. All right, so from curriculum instruction standpoint, so just this high-level summary here, we're going to continue, obviously, with updating our curricular guidance documents, so we have funds in there to support that work. Funds to continue with the Linkit data warehousing and including what I had just said earlier in regards to that time in district. And then Trish had made some moves in regards to using the federal funds. We had to pull it out of the operating budget. You're going to see a lot of the cuts, to be honest with you, as far as the operating budget is concerned. We are going to use the grant funds to purchase the benchmark workshop and Ready Classroom Math renewal. Rather than putting that in the operating budget. I believe one of them's 2 years, the other one's 3 years. So we're going to really use the grant funds next year, and then that'll buy us a couple of years to be able to then evaluate and then also budget for any future. From a school supplies standpoint, they're minimal as far as the actual overall budget is concerned. Just so you know, we had to sit down with the principals and supervisors after their original request. We met as early as this morning, and we had to take things out. I'll be honest with you, this is the toughest budget that I've had to put together in my 10 years here, and you're going to see once we get the staffing, unfortunately, it's not good. So we did remove some funds. They typically will take 1 or 2 classrooms each year and replace desks, chairs, tables, those types of things. That was removed from the budget. We were able to keep all the extracurricular programs for the kids in. The field trips, we are still funding 60%, parent will fund 40%, and then the preschool tuition will remain at $2,000. Child study team, so this is where we had quite a bit of an increase, and it was mainly due to students with special needs moving into our district and needing, out of district placements. We can tell you came to us, a very severely handicapped child, wheelchair bound, needed a wheelchair transportation, needed a bus aid, tuition, and a one-to-one nurse. So those type of costs. I mean, you're talking over $100,000, almost close to
And it's not
$200,000.
even transportation.
So that's just one child. So they're the type of things that can really put a squeeze.
Yeah, how can we be responsible for that?
We can apply for, extraordinary aid. They're not going to cover the entire cost, but that we're on the hook if they show up.
But I mean, that child probably receives Social Security, or the parents.
The parents,
But yet the town,
they're paying tax
Outside
to
the
the
house.
town from that money, right? So that's
but not at triple the cost of a regular child.
no. So they're the challenges. So how typically we will put contingencies in budgets in regards to just safeguarding from those type of situations. So this year, we were only able to put one anticipated out-of-district placement and one for transportation. We had to reduce it, unfortunately, and it just due to loss of state aid. And again, I'm let Trish get into the numbers. We still have little funds in there for unanticipated services. The homeless tuition, same thing. We had to reduce the number of homeless contingencies down to one. Typically, I think we had two each, so we cut that in half, but it's a considerable amount of money. And then, obviously, the extended school year program that is in the child's, in the several of our special education children's IEPs. The technology budget didn't change that much. The reality is, we're on a pretty good technology replacement schedule at this point. So really it is just continuing with those lease purchase payments. We did have a little bit extra funds for protection against ransomware attacks and server updates to make sure that we have that firewall and those technology supports in place. Transportation, this one, our bus replacement schedule calls for 2 new passenger buses, 54 passenger, and unfortunately we had to remove that from the 23-24 budget.
Did we buy the buses last year, or did we remove it last year too?
No, we bought buses last year. Yep.
Did we remove them the year before?
I think we did
There was 1 year.
less than what was.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
I think with one of the years that was 0%, we did purchase them in the current year and not budget them for the following year to be purchased if there were funds available at the end of that year.
So with that, there will be no purchase of new buses in next year's budget. We did have to again reduce the unanticipated homeless transportation. We reduced that down quite a bit. Trish will go through the numbers on that. And then, of course, we do have funds in there for our special education jointers, which does ultimately save us money.
So I have a good question about that.
Sure.
So like homeless, so we reduced it, but if we get more than they thought we were gonna get, we have to find that money somewhere.
We do?
Yep.
Yep, ultimately.
Same with special ed.
Same with special ed.
Do we have
Unfortunately,
any I think I may have asked this before, but I forget your answer. I mean, I'm sure we have self-contained programs, some kind of programs here for special ed kids.
oh, we do.
Like
Yes,
the-
LLD, MD
You
classes,
still have
yeah, we
MD
do.
and all day, and we
Mhm.
still send that money out of district.
We do, yeah. Unfortunately, the ones that we are sending out of district are severe needs.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just beyond our capability. All right, shifting to staffing, and you're going to hear me, I sound a little defeated. This is the first time in 10 years of 10-year building budgets that I am recommending the reduction of staffing positions. We are budgeting, again, it's just money at this point, the equivalent of 3 first-year teaching positions with single benefits. Now, we'll identify those at a later date and more than likely handle them through attrition with retirement, resignations, and or non-renewals. And that could include support staff once we take a look at it. In addition, we have had the luxury of having a part-time substitute nurse for actually as long as I've been here. Actually, Barb, you could probably speak to it. I think Barb Morella had brought on that part-time nurse prior to me getting here.
For you,
Unfortunately, we will no longer be able to afford that and budget for that. So it's 3 first-year teaching positions with single benefits and the part-time substitute nurse position. And again, you can see, Trish put in here, just the salaries is the largest portion of our budget at $13.4 million. It's 53%. And certainly the negotiations and the unknown there doesn't help. It doesn't. I did put on here just really to reinforce what I said earlier in regards to maintaining our stance from a negotiation standpoint. I probably shouldn't go too deep into that, as we're in public, but you can take a look at this chart and that tells you where we stand. It just does.
This is the chart you put together.
Yeah. This is the one I gave the team the other night. Minimum wage, we have certainly been keeping a close eye on that. There were a few of our positions that we had to adjust. I think, let me look. Our current minimum wage is $14.13 right now. It will increase to $15 an hour in 2024. So we're making sure that we're meeting that. Health benefits. So long story short here, we did get a favorable annual premium increase of 3.37%. And I say favorable because the state plan went up double digits.
I think 15
to 16%.
At
Yeah.
least 15%.
So being in the shift really benefited us for that. In the same vein, we always budget contingencies for staff members that are becoming eligible for family benefits. Unfortunately, this year we are unable to have that luxury. This is the one that probably scares me the most, I'll be honest with you, because I this year had 7 maternity leaves. So you have somebody that goes from member spouse, all of a sudden they have a baby, now it becomes family benefits. So this is, unfortunately, it's going to be tight, to be real honest with you. This is the one that has me a little bit leery, but we're not budgeting for contingencies to become eligible for family. And, hopefully we'll be okay if, we get some additional single benefit staff members in. Let's see. You put this statement in here, as previously reviewed, the mandated plans offering an estimated result of projected $309K of cumulative loss to the district in year 3. So if you remember when they went to Chapter 44, they sold that as it's going to be a win-win for both employee and employer. Unfortunately, it is not that way.
So that's $309,000 that
Less contribution coming
that
in from
the teachers are getting on top of their offer that we gave them, essentially.
Any new employee that's hired after, I believe it's July 1st, 2021, has to be enrolled in the New Jersey Educators Plan. So that's Chapter 44. So instead of taking a premium of their health benefit premium, taking a percentage of their health benefit premium, we now take a percentage of their salary, and it's a lower percentage
Right.
Across the board. So that number there is, from my spreadsheets of a lot of lines, the difference if they were still on Chapter 78 versus what they're paying and or would be paying.
So are existing employees still on 78, Chapter 78?
Some are,
Some
yes.
What triggers this?
Well, the benefit coverage, the co-pays, and it would be personal preference based on medical history. Maybe
So a lot of our existing employees are on Chapter 44, are going to be on Chapter 44.
they were given the opportunity to switch.
Right.
Yeah, we had a special open enrollment.
And that resulted in us contributing an additional $309,000 towards their health coverages.
Over 3 years, yes.
Right.
So that, and then Tricia's going to talk about capital projects. Actually, we're going to have a group discussion on capital projects as it pertains to the ROD grant. Our ROD grant applications are due May 1st, so we want to make sure that we do have capital reserve money in. Even if the project doesn't get done, that capital reserve money can go right back to capital. So it's no risk, but we certainly want to take advantage. If they're offering 40%, we might as well take advantage of that. And this is, if you want to talk about this table here for the expenditures with the.
Yeah, I mean, typically this table just kind of highlights some of the larger budget items and their increase or decrease. Typically, it's usually the increase that we throw in here. However, given the need for making adjustments,
Bless you.
I did throw in anyone that is a decrease. Now, the increase of $179,000 is not indicative of the overall budget. These are just some of the items within the full budget.
Revenue side.
So on page 13, we'll start the revenue development. The initial development consideration is obviously to reduce the use of reserves to fund the operating budget. 22-23 used $525,000 of the maintenance reserve. The 23-24 is proposed to use $505,000 of maintenance reserve. Obviously, state aid was received on March 2nd with a loss of about $256,000. Cumulatively over 2 or 3 years, it's about $1 million, if not a little bit more, give or take. The tuition that we receive from Newfield in our send-receive relationship is this year at about almost $2.4 million. Larger increase this year is based on the 21-22 tuition reconciliation based on students actually in the seats, average daily enrollment, multiplied by the certified tuition rate that comes from the 21-22 audit. Let's see. Newfield student enrollment has remained relatively steady over the past few years. No significant jumps or decreases. Fund balance, we're proposing to use fund balance this year in the 23-24 budget. The 22-23 budget used about $1.2 million. And the budget for 23-24 is proposing to use about the same. Maintenance reserve, again, just kind of dive deeper into that. The audited balance was $1.3 million as of June 30th, 2022. We did not transfer any money in from the 21-22 budget due to utilizing a lot of fund balance from the 21-22 budget. Again, 23-24 budget is proposing to use $505,000 from the maintenance reserve. At the end of 2024, on June 30th, it's proposed that the maintenance reserve balance would be $347,000. Again, due to no deposit made from the 21-22 budget. Basically the same deal with the capital reserve. The audited balance was $2.5 million. There is a typo in there. The 22-23 budget utilized $196,860, not the $191. That was 21-22's number.
196.
196,860. So the proposed balance as of June 30th, 2024 of capital reserve right now is only $2.1 million. Obviously, we're going to review capital projects and so on and so forth to put in the budget due to RAD grants, etc. Local tax levy, tentative budget proposing to include $523,000, represents a 4.51 tax increase. 2% increase is represented by $232,000, and the additional tax levy of $300,000, which is 2.51%, is available for use as bank cap. Total amount of bank cap currently available to use in the full budget is about $779,000. Bank cap amount of $226,000 is slated to expire on June 30th, 2023 if it's not utilized within the 23-24 budget. And $109,000 of bank cap expired as of June 30th, 2022. And you cannot use bank cap unless the tax levy is not maxed at 2%. Moving on to debt service, That accounts for the accumulation of resources and then the payment for those resources via long-term debt with principal and interest. Debt service payment for 22-23 was $196,860, and again, that was paid from the capital projects funds, which is inclusive in the capital reserve, which provided a tax relief almost equal to 2%. 23-24, the total debt service equals $196,000, almost $197,000, or 1.7% in relation to the actual tax levy amount. Noting that the life of the loan goes through the year 2028, and the total remaining amount of the loan, inclusive of interest, is $782,000. It's also noted that the historical use of supporting the debt service payments from capital projects funds has been a direct tax savings to taxpayers. Moving to special revenue, 23-24 budget is based on the projection of 85% of the current allocations for special revenue sources, and those are listed there. The only one to really note is IDEA funds. I am actually budgeting at 100% in the 23-24 budget, given the historical trends in funds received, in order to offset some of the out-of-district placement costs. Page 15 lists the COVID-related federal grants that we have available. The original sheet that I had given out was included in February 18 of 2021 weekly update, and that had about 9 or 10 grants. 3 of those that you'll see on the next page have expired and or been used, so you will not see them listed. And then all of the uses that are included in the 23-24 budget are listed there, and the amounts that are proposed. Again, that's a summary on page 16. You'll see the funding period. 3 of those are expiring as of 9/30/2023. And then the other ones, as Troy mentioned, will expire as of 9/30/2024. Page 17 is a nice little colored graph that usually comes in every executive summary. This kind of just breaks down the expenses, maybe not necessarily as an account, but as a type, in order to see the costs in different ways. Of course, salaries are the largest expense at 53%, health benefits at 20%, and so on and so forth. Any questions on that? Thank you. Just kind of going through these, but I know everybody wants to get to the last page, which is the tax rate. Page 18 lists the current revenues of 22-23, and then the budgeted revenues of 23-24. Again, you'll see the withdrawal from capital reserve is highlighted in yellow because we will be proposing to utilize more money from the capital reserve in order to pay for projects related to the ROC grants. I know I'm throwing a lot at you. And then tax rate, page 19, everybody's favorite. With the ratables, you'll see the increase from 22-23 into 23-24 increased $4.8 million. The 22-23 current fund tax rate is 0.9221, and proposed budget for 23-24 is looking to be 0.9523, which is an increase of 0.0302. The property tax comparison sheet shows the proposed increases based on an annual tax increase and broken down then by monthly. That's what I got. So I'm going to look backwards because I'm sure somebody had either any questions about some things or has questions.
That's the total rate.
Is there a bus maintenance budget?
Um,
Has to have any?
Like,
Is there like if there's
current-
no increase for school buses? when-
Current rate.
No,
It's
our fleet is pretty well
9.2,
maintained
so
at
say
this point.
92
We haven't
cents.
seen a decrease
And they want to
in
go to 95 cents, it's like 3 cents.
in those, so we do feel a little bit good about decreasing those typical budgets.
And that's 2%.
Yeah, it's like 5%,
That's a 5%.
Sure.
or 4.51.
Percentages or dollar amount?
Dollar amount.
Right, so the first column over there shows the assessment of the home. So if you look at that bottom column, that's 250,000. Annual increase for a 250,000 home would be $75 a year or $6.28 a
What
month.
about above that? If you're above that, it's still stay at that, or is it gonna be that more?
It'll be more as the more your home is worth, the more.
It's basically whatever you put in the assessed valuation column. Let's say your home's worth $300,000, you would multiply 300,000 times the tax rate divided by 100, and then you would be able to get your estimated school tax amount. The county usually provides us with the average home value for the full county listed in each city, as well as the estimated rate also.
All right, Trish, there's something suspiciously missing. You know what it is?
The options are.
The options sheet that we ask for every year.
Jason,
Well, to be
Well,
honest,
look at this.
like how can we?
Oh,
The what? Shazam!
why were you holding it back?
Because I didn't need you looking at this before I told you about everything.
Why? Because I jump ahead, so I
You
can't.
always do.
Okay, so you got to moderate my information.
you have one?
So I know as we had given an update in the verbal updates in January and February, stating that the budget was off about $4 million from revenues being less than the appropriations that were proposed. So what you'll see here is the account number, the account description, and then a description of what was reduced and or what was removed, or what was reallocated, the effect it had on either the revenue or the expense, and then the amount of that adjustment. And then the running balance total will obviously show you what the remainder is to decrease to reach the $4.182 million difference.
Okay, well, this still isn't what I'm referring to. I want the list of things that if we reduce the tax levy are going to be cut.
Right, well, so this is what we already did cut. So in terms of cutting more, it's looking like it's going to be more spots.
It would be
more-
staff. Yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, the first time in 10 years that we've had to come at you guys with staff. So we have literally bare boned everything. I mean, staff is always last, right? No matter what. And unfortunately, we've got to that point. We've been fortunate enough over the last, my 10 years here, to not have to go down that path. And unfortunately, this year is not that year.
I mean, a lot of our expenses are fixed costs. If you look at the chart, we have to pay tuition regardless of even whether we have it in the budget or not. Same thing for transportation. The FICA, PERS, and DCRP, those are employment taxes that we're required to pay by the federal government. Technology or the Chromebooks, and basically keep the computers in the district up and running, software, servers, etc. Natural gas and electricity, those are fixed costs. Insurance is a fixed cost. Our professional contracts, same with debt service, curriculum, keeping up with all of the items needed there. Again, the school purchases, and those were cut. Copiers, fax, postage, communications, telephones, and then the negotiated benefits. This is a very whittled down budget that we're proposing to you. The state aid losses over the few years total over $1 million. salaries themselves have totaled over $1 million on increase, so there's a swing of $2 million there. And the tax levy has only been increased roughly 3.8% over the 4 years, when minimum tax levy would have been 8%. So there are some holes needed to be filled, and these are what we came up with.
The first line here, that's what the budget anticipates for the bank cap, that 291.
Correct. So that's above and beyond the 2%.
So if we didn't want to use bank cap, you'd have to pull out another 291.
Correct.
That's the number.
Right, at this point, we have a balanced budget. Revenue equal appropriations. So any change in revenue, decrease in revenue is also a decrease in expense.
And this is a 2% increase?
This is a
4.51%.
And keep in mind that there is still bank cap. We're not utilizing all the bank cap at this point, but kind of met in the middle, if you will.
What was your reasoning for that, Troy?
To not use all bank cap, just historical conversations around the table. You know, we know you guys are tax savvy, so we're trying to meet in the middle, really.
We did.
That's embarrassing, Troll. I said we can cut the board food budget.
We did.
On this revenue, where's the tuition tuition individuals? Yeah, where's the tuition number?
What page are you on?
I'm on your spreadsheet here. I'm looking at the revenues. I don't see
That was not adjusted. So the revenue that we proposed to Newfield was agreed upon, so that revenue was not adjusted. These are all the amounts that were adjusted from the beginning of January and or February, when we had no balanced budget. So these were the adjustments made in order to balance the budget.
Okay. So you're saying you had that additional 400 in there originally?
Additional 400 from where?
The additional 400,000 in revenue from the tuition. That's right.
Yes.
So the 4 million already anticipated, the 4,182,000 already anticipated the additional 400 in revenue. Is what you're saying?
Correct.
Well, you know what's missing from here is the expected revenue from the interest we're going to get from that $5 million. So it's going to be about $200,000.
Really?
Well, if we get 4%, which is what, a high rate. I'm being serious. You guys are laughing, but I mean, you get a high yield savings account, they're paying over 4% right now.
Right, but we have to have minimum balance in the
It's gonna be in
accounts,
there
and
for
we have to be able to use it for cash
Period of
flow.
time, right?
But
As
like
well as-
all of our reserve accounts, we should be able to move those, right?
But that's over a period of year, right? So you have to have the money in the account for a little
Right.
bit of time to accrue that. So that would,
Well, that's
if
what
we
I'm-
did that, we
right.
could add it to next year's revenue, but it's not going to affect, or the following year's budget. It wouldn't affect this year's.
Well, the hope
Well,
is that
hopefully the
the
enrollment
state aid
goes up.
and or enrollment continues to trend up, and state aid then is fully funded back to where it is.
What does the need to now?
Enrollment.
Formula.
It's a
Enrollment.
very long formula, there's a lot of pages to it. I'm not sure that I've ever been explained the formula in any term that I can understand, and it was even the person explaining it didn't necessarily understand it. It's called S2. And it takes into consideration the minimum is how many kids do you have in the seats based on your ASS.
Well, so you can't, you don't carry those items? They get so that's what I'm
Every year,
saying.
no, the money gets put back in at the end of the audit.
Well, then this doesn't really have anything for cut. Maybe
No, we
No,
didn't put it.
we didn't put a number, just she
discussed
highlighted that in yellow. Just, this number's going to change just based on, we got to get a little bit more in regards to how much some of those projects are going to cost. But again, we have to put it in there because you're looking at a 40%.
So this
from the
this
state.
withdrawal from last year is not to be even considered because it wasn't really.
It wasn't, right?
That was what we allocated,
Part of
and
that
maybe we
was
spent
debt
some,
service, so
maybe we didn't,
we
right?
pulled out $1.1 million for actual projects.
And that was all projects that we haven't done yet. And we're into.
So that money then goes
Goes
back
back.
into it. So that's what I'm saying, our projected balance without using any additional funds other than that debt service of 196,910 gives us the capital reserve balance of 2.1 million.
Right.
Questions? Sure. Yeah.
Talk about the elephant in the room as far as staff reduction. Is this like inevitable? Is it a possibility, a probability?
Well, right now, it represents $200,000. So, you know, I mean, it would be irresponsible for me to say I'm going to cut this and this
No,
right
no, no, I
now.
don't want you to say what.
Ultimately,
I'm just saying
taking a
it's
look.
reality.
It's a reality. Absolutely. I mean, because that's.
Where else are you gonna get that money?
Right, it's $200,000. So that's $200,000 that we didn't put on the expenditure side.
Is that one from each school?
Again, it's going to be through attrition. You know, we still have to do our performance reviews, depending on, you know, we may have a couple non-renewals. I could walk in my office and get a retirement tomorrow, and that's 50,000 breakage right there.
Right.
So then maybe that, instead of 3 positions, it's 2 positions. You know, it just give us a different lens. But at the end of the day, it represents almost $200,000,
Yeah, because you have,
which that's what's equivalent to 3.
you have to look at the chart too, like how many kids are in the classes and,
Yeah.
you know, and they look pretty stable to me, like they look like they're almost.
Well, and you know, Barb could do her annual reviews and say, I need 2 less aides. And again, I'm hypothetical,
I know,
right?
I'm just
So-
thinking of what you're all gonna have to go through.
Like cutting the teachers is gonna be more kids in class.
Well, no.
Depends.
No, keep in mind, again, instead of, and I equated it to 3 first-year teachers. We had to put a dollar figure to it, right? 3 first-year teacher positions with single benefits. It represents 200,000. Like I just said, if we had a retirement that gives me 50,000 of breakage and maybe Barb needs 1 less aide, that's, you know, 75, 80,000 of it. Maybe now it's only 2 spots that are reduced because I got breakage from those people that are leaving. And listen, the way that we're going, I mean, ultimately getting a resignation of somebody moving on to make more money, and if they have family benefits to get down to
Right now.
to single benefits, right? That yeah, I mean that's $25,000 if they go from family to single bennies.
Right, I was just saying, I think
So,
we should address it.
You got to look at it as a number, okay?
Right.
But from a staff, we
Not-
took it out of the staffing salary line item, $200,000.
I just wanted to address it because I think it had to be said out loud.
But Barb, again, it's the first time I've had to do it.
I know, Greg,
Well,
Mr. Walton.
does anybody care what my opinion is?
We know. Why you look at me?
I'm going to give it anyway.
Please do.
Last year,
Been waiting for it all day.
I said, and I hope you'll confirm this, that,
Get out the tape, Bill.
yeah, that I wanted to cut staff last year. I thought it was the appropriate thing to do based on the declining enrollment as well as the declining state aid. And your opinion was that you were hoping that the enrollment would tick up and that that's not something that you were comfortable doing.
And it is. It's ticking up. It's just the state aid hasn't caught up to it yet.
So that's an accurate statement. And I think we should have done it last year. And I think we should do it this year because we're getting a reduction based on a reduction in enrollment. Personally, I won't support the use of Cat Bank now or ever. I haven't changed my position on that. I don't think it's an appropriate use of the revenue. I don't believe in Cat Bank. I think that once, just similar to what the administrator said, once a deal is struck, you move on and you deal with the consequences moving forward. So I won't support anything beyond 2%. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I mean, it's a 9-member board, so I'm only 1 vote.
I'd like to hear from everybody else. So again,
Yeah, I mean, Jason's point is he doesn't want to raise taxes. But he's pretty staunch on that every year. We're all pretty aware of that. To his point, though, he does think that then correct me if I'm wrong, utilizing the fund balance, because that is taxes that may have been raised and or was left over from the previous budgets. So we've exhausted all of that money. at this point.
No, listen, I don't disagree with you. All I'm saying is and my belief is with bank cap, it's like if you have a good budget one year, you shouldn't go back and punish people the next year because your circumstances have changed.
I believe one of your comments was also, I would prefer to go 0, 0, 0 and then hit the taxpayers with an 8%. If you recall that a few years ago.
I may have said something to that effect.
So here we are, we're at the 8, but we're not even at the 8.
Well, we're 4.5, and the alternative is to cut staff, which.
Oh, we're doing cutting
No,
staff
cutting
with
staff
that.
anyway.
Well, no, the alternative is to cut more staff. So I thought staff should have been cut before, and at this point, maybe more staff needs to be cut in order to make that happen. I mean, again,
So to play devil's advocate, we can go back and not use tax money, but you're going to hold on to the last year's budget when we should have cut staff?
well, you're comparing everything to last year's budget, so everything goes off the prior year budget. Had we cut staff last year, the budget would have been less, and we would have had more money theoretically had we raised the taxes the same amount. You follow what I'm saying?
I do, but I will disagree based on the increases that we're offering negotiated contracts.
Well, that's another issue.
Because like I said, over the last 2 budget years, the salaries have increased $1 million.
I understand that. So.
Well, to Jason's point, I never want to cut staff, but when you look at the amount, I mean, we do have a lot of extra staff because of the grants.
Correct. So that's going to need to be addressed next year.
Yes, well, and I don't know if that's maybe something we look at now in this budget. Because
I think
It's difficult only because the grants, they're specific.
right,
So it's like I can't just give grant money and spend it on a 4th grade teacher or a 1st grade teacher. Like there are specific uses to what those teachers and or staff are doing in those classrooms to be paid with those federal grant monies.
yes,
So you have end dates.
right, I know, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, like.
This budget
Do we
should
have
just.
to have an SEL teacher? Or the SEL, whatever that was?
That's written to the grant, the SEL.
Oh, that's not gonna happen.
And again, that was our thought train. We're not using all of the bank cap. We're using some of it. I know your stance is not to use any of it,
Yeah, I mean,
but
I'm not trying to.
we
be
also
difficult.
didn't come here and say, let's use all of it and not cut any positions. Historical conversations around this table led us to what we feel is middle ground. And, listen, I'm defeated. I don't want to cut staff. I would never advocate to you guys to cut staff. You want to build staff. Because, we can sit here and talk dollars and cents, but what about the effect on kids? Right? At the end of the day.
We've all seen Jamie's presentations the last few years. I mean, as far as student achievement, like cutting staff is not gonna help that.
What could we use ESSER 2 fund on, that's in the budget? Because we have 264,000 left.
Right, so that's already earmarked. That's the available
that?
balance as of current.
Okay.
So in that budget is, I think, roughly
80, okay, so it's about 180 left.
correct. Which we have staff attached to that money
Right,
this
so there'll
year.
be 180 left after next year.
No, we're only able to, this one runs out 9/30/2023. So this will cover our summer school teachers and transportation.
See, Michelle, that's going to be it's going to be tough conversations next year in regards to staff because that money dries up. So then, what are we doing with those staff? A lot. We got coaches, we have some other services. We'll have
And
to
that's
have
only for
hard conversations.
summer school, ESS?
$80,500, yes.
No, but I mean the grant itself, what can you use that?
No, we have that,
It's not just that, like, why haven't we utilized that before it expires?
because it's already been earmarked. Like, we've spent money on that. We've spent $332,000 in 21-22, and currently, this year, we already have 164 already spent.
Okay, so
But it's not including encumbrances on that available balance. So, hold on a second.
I mean, so
We have BSI teachers attached to that. We have the summer school teachers. We have the bus drivers for summer school. Plus, we have to, per the application, we have to pay the TPAF and pension costs.
So there won't be any funds left in 923, that's what you're saying?
We're not allowed to spend it after
I know, but
9/30.
there will be no more funds left, and we'll be
Correct. We're
utilizing
utilizing and earmarking and budgeting that 80,500 to just pay for this July 1.
Right, but I mean, the fund, all the funds that we've got, according to this, we have 260 at the end of last year.
No, that's available balance current. I probably could have put something
Okay.
else up there, but that's
So minus
current
the
right
80
now.
that we're designating for the summer,
Mhm.
we're left with about 180, 170.
And that's encumbered for this year, for the rest of this year.
Okay, so we're utilizing that this year.
Correct.
Okay, so
Correct.
there will be a zero balance.
Yes.
Okay.
So just like you see the one underneath that learning acceleration, we've already expended that
Okay.
money. So you'll see
Okay.
that at zero.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, just because you see a balance here,
Okay.
like you'll see that ARP ESSER, we have about $1 million left there. That's earmarked for this year, current year, 22-23, plus 23-24.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so you can't utilize any more of those funds for next year. And
Correct.
deplete it for the, you can't.
Correct, because we've earmarked
Earmarked
it.
it as much
And
as we can.
that's the budget, or that's the account that I was able to make some changes to it to be able to get the one-time costs of the curriculum updates and put that in there. So we did try to utilize everything that we had, if we even had to adjust some things in this year's current budget to be able to move them for next year. So again, we did, I think Troy and I did our due diligence in trying to come to the table with something that wasn't completely guffaw, and I know it seems that way, but that's
the fall?
guffaw. Guffaw? Guffaw? You ever heard of that?
so
So,
that to that point, that's 6 positions that we don't have money for moving
Next year,
forward, right?
correct. I mean, we're gonna be more than likely in the same boat next year. Just moving people around and or reducing to be able to backfill.
You got 6 there. We got 3 now. You do another 3, brings the tax levy down to 2%. There's your 6. 3, 3, 6, 6.
I'm
but we
not,
pay for 6 out of a grant, so it
I'm not
doesn't count towards the
recommending-
tax rate.
Well, so there's 12 then. There
I
you go.
wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm voting no. So if there's 4 more of you, tell
Voting yes.
Trish now.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do
Otherwise,
need to come to a consensus because
Yeah.
really, because it's actually due,
What do you have?
well, it's due, right. It's due
Well,
Monday
yes or
So
no?
because
on Monday, then I have to send it if I can or can't.
it's due on Monday. So after the meeting, she's got to get back in the
My
office
question
and
is,
it's,
what choice do we have?
Well, you
Say
reduce,
no, then what?
you reduce more staff.
Yeah. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to.
Based on the items. that
Right
we've
now,
already
you're
gone
thinking
through.
Either-
Probably around 3.
If it's under the
And that's
4.5,
4%.
it represents
4.51.
$30,000.
It's a
Well-
4.5.
It's we're using
Increase.
2.51 of bank cap. Is really, of the, what do we have, 6% really of bank cap?
Correct.
We have 6% available, but we're only using 2.5 of that to balance the budget. That's what we needed to do without making deeper cuts. And that's really what it comes down to.
I think it's really clear
Welcome
that you
to my
guys
world.
spent a lot of time looking at what you could and should or what's in the best interest.
I don't think we
of
could say it enough that cutting staff would never have been our first and or even last idea of how to balance the budget.
Well, I mean, when you have a declining enrollment, you can't continue to operate at the same level. You have to cut staff. I mean, regardless. That's just simple mathematics.
But our enrollment, it was an anomaly that enrollment went down. Our enrollment is trending right back up. So
But not quick enough to.
not,
Right.
no, because it's a
Over a
5-year
average.
look back in regards to state aid. You know,
I
we're
mean, each-
hoping that state
each year
aid
you could add
catches
one.
us.
Yeah, but we haven't cut
Some years
yet,
we only-
so
but
that's
some
what I'm
years we
saying.
only added 1 or 8, I think.
Right, but I
Looking
mean,
at the-
if tuition were to increase dramatically,
Well, essentially, we should have,
Then
I mean, I shouldn't say we should have because it's not my decision, but every time we lost state aid due to enrollment, we should have been reducing staff. all
And
along.
truthfully, what would it do to these numbers? I mean, you're probably not adding one kid more to each class.
See, that's what we're really kind of stuck here. Because when you have a classroom, it's not like all of the 50 kids we lost are in one classroom, so we just eliminate one teacher. It's like these kids are spread out, so what do? Take that class of 20 and divide it into the other 4 classes?
Yeah.
It's not like there's a
But it's not
group.
3 or 4, it's what? How many kindergarten? 8?
Well, it would depend where the staff cuts
That's what
come
I'm saying,
from,
like,
right?
But I'm just saying, if
Yeah,
it was
homerooms, simple
But
math,
it's
yes.
not-
Right.
Yeah, sure, I get that, but I mean, it's not like you have, all your declining enrollment is in one building or
Right.
one school.
Yeah,
or
that would
one
make it
whatever.
easy.
So what, you got 2 less kindergarten kids, I'm just making up a
Right,
number, or 2 less first grade. What are you supposed to do, eliminate a teacher? What do? Eliminate the auxiliary, whatever you call them nowadays, teachers, we used to call them
Yeah,
other
but do you
things?
still buy the same amount of groceries you did when your kids were at home?
Yeah, I mean,
You
that
throw
We're not
it all in
talking
the
about-
trash.
we're
You
not-
can't spend the same amount for
We're not-
for less.
That's
Barb, I
not-
follow what you're
wait,
saying.
Wait. I'm just trying to say that we're not talking about supplies. That's a no-brainer. You know, you buy less supplies, of course, you buy less of this, you do because you use the same amount of electricity, you use the same amount of heat. You don't heat the building 2 degrees less because there's 2 less kids in there.
Yeah, but our state aid is tied directly to enrollment.
But you're not in that position here. You can't compare this to your personal life.
No, and we can't sit here at the next meeting and say, look at, how horrible these graphs are for student achievement and then cut teachers. It just won't make sense. Like, it can't.
On the other
make sense.
hand,
But then at some point,
Well, that makes
that's
complete
gotta
sense to
level
me
out.
Exactly,
because
no, I agree. At some point that does have to start to
we
bounce
keep
up.
adding programs.
and teachers.
We maintain teacher staff and extend it, and we still don't have student
I
success.
agree.
Well,
I agree.
So,
Right.
so
And-
I guess my concern is cutting teachers. You may be able to do some of the suggestions. It's not our job to figure it out at this
No.
table. It's the building principals and the administrator's decision how it's gonna go.
Sure.
There may be 10 kids in one grade level. That
right,
would be
just giving you just a picture here. So year to date, we had 74 kids transfer out, 116 in. So you got 26, 36, 42. We're at a plus 42 since September 7th. So, I mean, we are trending back. Again, this
But we
isn't
don't have the money to pay them.
we're taking, we're taking a hit from an anomaly, from a pandemic. We're still feeling the effects of that. So, I mean, we can sit here and analyze it all you want. Again, we're trying to meet you in the middle. We're going to have this conversation again next year just because the grant money's going to dry up. At that point, I
I
think.
mean, it seems to me, because this isn't the first time this has happened, that we've gotten these hits in a row. Many years ago, they hit us with something, it was like, at that time, it was 185, and it seemed like a lot of money. Do you remember that, Daisy? I don't know if you were on the board
I'm
yet.
not sure.
I don't think any of you were on the board yet. And it was almost like they punished the districts that seemed to be conscientious and good with their money,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
Yeah, that was back
It's
in
like,
11.
okay, because like Trish said, they didn't even have a
They
good,
weren't-
really explanation.
No, they weren't funding the formula at the time, right? They were
That's
just
right.
going flat
Oh, well.
state aid, or they were taking a look at your reserves, and if you were healthy reserves, they were deducting your reserves from the state aid. And that occurred in 2011, 12, somewhere in that ballpark. But
Well,
again, this is what we're faced. This is what we're recommending. We think it's fair all the way around, and maintaining or trying to maintain as much as we can.
one more thing, is support staff aware that we may need to cut staff?
None of them are aware of that because this is the conversation.
If, will they be made aware?
Yeah, well, sure.
yeah, because you said I thought there was something
No,
on there.
I
don't think-
haven't notified. You guys need to have to be the first part of the conversation.
No,
I didn't
I
have
know.
any of that conversation.
I guess I'm thinking out loud, like does this include support staff as well?
It could, sure. Again, they're going to be
Yeah,
determined.
it's not
at
tied
I'm
to
not
a
saying they're less
specific
important.
position
Right,
at this
it's-
point, it's just a
it's-
representation of
representation of a
funds.
fund of dollars
Okay.
is all it is. A representation at this point.
I mean,
I'd love to be able to come back and say, okay, we had 2, retirements, and I had 1 resignation, and the breakage equals this, and we only
And
need
we're
to cut
happy.
1 spot. Right? I'd love to be able to tell you that in September, in June.
Yep.
well, I think that's likely to happen. I mean, we're probably not really going to fire anyone.
Yeah, but you know
Like-
what's also likely to happen is 4 of my young teachers to get pregnant, and they're going to need family benefits that we didn't budget for.
Right.
So, I mean, we can sit here and play hypothetical till we're blue in the face. you know, at the end of the day, we feel that this is best case scenario.
We haven't even checked
Alumni, start an alumni fund. Bill, that's on you. Start the alumni fund.
We'll be on TV.
So we, at this point, I mean, you know, just so we can move this along. I mean,
Send it to the county.
we do need to, you know, remember Monday is sending it to the county. Hey, who knows? Maybe I'll have a clearer picture by the time April meeting comes around and something breaks. But, you know, minus those contingencies, we're walking a fine line. We're walking on thin ice. We really are. So we know, listen, I know we're not taking straw votes, but I know we have one that's not going to support that. We can't show up on Monday and not support this because Trish has to come back here after the meeting and send it because it is due Monday evening. So
I support it.
Everybody else not.
does anybody, I mean, we know,
So what,
Here.
if you vote, if you were voting yes, we're voting for that midpoint
correct,
and.
Which is what's calculated here.
correct.
That's at the-
So that, you know, if you want to look from a, I'm not sure if did you talk to Joe?
I haven't.
I'm not sure where they are with theirs, to be honest with you. She asked about Delsey. I don't know.
I mean, they did get a little bit of bump in state aid,
Well, perhaps we should ask them for a little win.
a little bit of money.
Yeah, about $292,000 if they got extra.
What happens if everyone votes no? Then what? Is it
Well,
come up with a different number?
we're statutorily required to send this to the county by Monday. So we'd have to then
Sit
talk
here and
about,
get rid of that, or we,
or figure out where you want to go.
Yeah, I don't believe it would consider or fall under an emergency meeting, so there'd be no reason that we'd be able to have a meeting like the next night. Not much is gonna change, honestly, at this point.
Trish, is there ever, has it ever happened to your knowledge that like just out of the blue, we submit this to the county, there's no chance for adjustments after that?
No, there's always adjustments able to be made.
Oh, there are?
Yes.
Yeah, you can make
Yes.
adjustments up till the public hearing, till you've
That's
actually.
Monday.
No,
Public hearing.
April.
Right, so
Oh.
Monday, it's really just sent there
Yeah.
for administrative review.
So
But,
then the process is that the county is seeing what we're proposing, and then they have the opportunity to ask questions, make sure that all the backup documentation matches,
Right, and then
and they do
when we
their,
have the
and then they
budget
ask
hearing,
questions.
We could, and it won't change, I know that, we could maybe, it could be tweaked or something at some point.
Like Troy said, if you get some sort of notice about somebody, some position, I mean, that,
Who knows?
at this point, would be the only thing that I would foresee occurring,
Making any,
So-
any.
but also, it would have to be significant. I don't want to see, we get a $10,000 break if let's adjust the budget.
Right.
Again, walking that fine line with those contingencies, that's not going to make that much of a difference. It's really not.
So could we do 3% instead of 4.5%?
Then you're cutting 150,000. It's going to be more staff.
I think you gotta send it, I think you've done all your, your financial blah, 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 blah.
Blah,
If,
blah,
I
blah.
mean, just to give you the numbers on a 3% increase, your $250,000 home would see an increase of $58 versus at 4.51% at $75
A year.
per year.
Yeah, that's what the public won't see that though. They won't fathom that in their head that they're
4%.
They are gonna go, and they don't even know
Right,
what
they
that
won't
means.
realize it's
I
$75.
don't mean that disrespectfully, I mean, they,
Well, you have to realize too that we're only one taxing
right,
Body.
entity
Right.
of
At
like
the end of
five.
the day, I think
so-
we did have this conversation before, that even if we go zero, taxpayers are probably going to see an increase anyway, because we can't control the municipality, we can't control the county, we can't control Delsey.
But if everyone gets a 5% increase, then that $75 turns into, $500.
That's
Correct.
at 250, if people are above that too.
Well, rich people that have expensive homes apparently can pay more, like Alicia.
But I think it's a fair statement.
I'm like, that's
Send
it.
me the average home in 2028, find a house in Franklin.
You're not gonna find a house in Franklin for
So really, it's pretty simple. If you vote yes, then we send it. If you vote no, then you're going to go back and you're going to cut more staff. That's what you're gonna.
That's what I was trying to get at, so it's either.
I'm not saying it blasé, but the administration has said that if we don't approve it, in order to adjust it, that's where you're gonna make the adjustments to staff.
Absolutely.
So,
I do think this board should pat themselves on the back. You guys have been, really savvy and really paid attention to taxes over the last 4 years. I mean, you really have.
I'd be happy though.
But is
No,
that
I'm not saying that to try to make Jason happy.
2%.
I mean,
I think what I'm hanging my hat on
this
is
is the
that,
reason we're having these
is that I
conversations.
wanted to do this sooner, and I think we should have done it sooner, and I think we should do it now, and I think we should do it more severe than we're probably doing it now, because it's going to put us in a better position next year, because we're going to have to make major cuts next year, and they're going to be even more major, depending on what we do this year. Say that out loud, Barb. I didn't hear.
It's just gonna be so hard to cut teachers.
It's
Well,
not
a lot of-
necessarily
I
that
know
you
not
can't let them
teachers,
miss
Well,
the
and a lot of
teacher.
what we're gonna cut though is extras. I mean, a lot of the grants are paying extras. They're paying coaches, they're paying after school. It's not
I'm talking
the
about
norm.
this year.
I know, but he's talking about next year, how we're gonna have to cut so many more. So I don't know that that's necessarily, we're gonna have to cut, but it's not cutting from the base. We're gonna be cutting from the extra.
Well, no, because we're going to have to move those people back into
Because they're
the
tenure
base,
spots.
so it's going to be twice as bad.
Coaches.
Come on, let's not sit here.
Well, yeah, I don't want to go into specifics like that
Right,
here, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Um,
no, you're right.
So are we good to get this to the county
You
on
better ask everybody.
on Monday?
Well, I don't think we're really going to vote on it, but you know how I
You don't
feel.
have to vote.
No,
It
but we
says
have to
no.
have at least a
I got at least 3 no votes, so
You do?
I think so.
You count yourself 3?
I counted myself, so I
He just grabbed his laptop and I was
Maybe
like.
4.
Jason, are you are you leaving?
Oh, I thought we were done.
No, we just gotta go through the agenda here.
Ah, I'll get another drink. You said let's wrap this up. So
We could probably be done in about 10 minutes.
Could have been done 15 minutes ago.
All right, so click on the review of the meeting for Monday, and we can zip through that.
Do you want a cookie?
No, thank you.
Thank you all for-
cookie? Those cookies are good. I'll take a cookie.
They are good. They're really good.
I got to restart my whole thing.
Okay, so long story short, we'll go through this quickly. We already went through some of it actually.
Do everything, didn't we?
Yeah, I thought we were. Yeah.
2 presentations on Monday, the mid-year and the social emotional learning committee from a strategic plan standpoint. The report outs, I think some board members went to a couple of activities, so you're going to want to report out on that stuff for us on Monday. HR, we already went through, so we're good there. Education, we actually kind of touched on too, so we kind of reviewed those. So there's really only 2 items that, actually 3. We do have 2 practicum students that are going to be with us in September to approve. General admin is normal stuff. We already reviewed the HIBs, so really no need to revisit that. Operational stuff, that's you.
Claims is normal. There may be another bill list to be added, but again, if there is, you'll see that highlighted in yellow. Budget transfers, over expenditure report, and board secretary report, treasurer report for the month of January 2023. Do have cafeteria report for the month of January as well. 6 and 7 are none. We have 1 out-of-district homebound instruction item to approve. 9, 10, and 11 are none. Item 12 is use facilities for the Franklin Township Little League, and the dates that that's unavailable is they are listed. Following up for the audit, the actual approval, and the resolution, and again, you'll see in there to approve the actual audit, the synopsis, and the finding regarding the food service account. Item 14, ESS Northeast, used to be Source for Teachers. All the rates stayed the same as the 22-23 year. However, it should be noted that we have not even utilized their services at all this year. So, Number 15 is the RFPs. Those will then be advertised and available to any professional services that may want to respond. And again, we will be opening those, I think, May 12th, I want to say, sometime in May. So we'll go over those at the May board meeting, and then award at the June board meeting.
Trish, did you allude to the fact that you had some input on our current professionals? I'm not asking you to
Yes.
give that input now, because it's not appropriate,
Correct.
but I'm just making sure that I heard that correctly previously, so you'll have that for us
Yeah,
at a future,
Yep.
maybe Monday or something. Okay.
probably in April.
In April.
Just to review and see if we did get any respondents back.
Okay.
Otherwise, yes, in May, barring any other recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
16 are the tentative tuition rates for 23-24, and then again, those are calculated by the Department of Education budget program. And it should be noted that you will see the tuition contracts for Newfield, those rates do not match. As historical rates, we take the most recently certified tuition rates from 21-22 and increase them by 4%. If there were any discrepancies or any disagreements with Newfield, we would discuss those and we would have to come to an agreement upon the tuition amounts because my budget sheets have to match theirs for our receiving and their sending. So you'll see the list of.
So would we be requesting a 4% increase on those students? I mean, if we're asking for
No, Newfield is
4%
zero. She
to
just said they
cover our
they're doing
budget,
zero, right?
we don't ask them to increase?
We increase their tuition account by 4%.
Okay.
Typically, that it works out that the rates are about the same. But then again, it's the change and or fluctuation in actual students in the seats within those grades.
The way, I don't mean to cut you off, Trish, and explain this, but it's a look back. So they do a reconciliation a year behind.
Right.
And those are the rates that we have, correct, Trish?
Mhm.
So we know that those rates are going to go up. So historically, from what I understand you're saying, is that they've agreed to increase 4% with the anticipation.
Estimate.
And when they do the reconciliation, they may owe us a little bit of money. We may owe them a little bit of money. So it's not necessarily like like the 4% is just a guesstimate of a possible increase. So they're not slammed with a big bill at the end. Right? Is that accurate?
But we're looking at increasing taxes 4.5%, but only 4% for Newfield. Am I understanding that correctly?
No.
Right.
They're tuition based. That has nothing to do with the tax rate. You know what I mean? They pay a tuition based on a reconciliation that's done by the state of New Jersey. So they just, and we historically just use the 4% increase in order for them not to have a huge deficit when the reconciliation is done at the end of the year, if you follow.
That 4% is really just an estimate of what they believe the
What
increase
the state tuition would increase. You still look like you have questions, sir.
We don't determine what they pay, the state
The
does.
state does the
Right.
tuition.
So we could raise 0%, we could raise 4%, the state's still gonna get.
Yeah, we can raise 100%, but at the end of the day, it gets reconciled, and we either owe them the balance back or they owe us the balance.
Right, so once
Good.
the audit's done, which
Right.
was recently done for 21-22, then all of our expenses based on location and program and function are all divided up based on the kids in that grade level. So it's either if they're in kindergarten, or if they're in grades 1 through 5, or if they're in grade 6. So those are the expenses that get allocated to them. Same with LLD program. All the expenses in our budget that are allocated to the LLD program go into how many kids are in the program divided by the expense. That's where you get your per pupil cost. So historically, the general education tuition has increased about 4%. Good.
You guys good? Yeah, okay.
Slide it
I
over there.
solved
Yeah.
all of our budget problems. Just kidding, I didn't.
We're gonna have to separate those two, I guess, and redo the seating assignments.
From over there.
Item number 18 is the, just the listing of the state aid numbers. And then number 19 is the resolution to approve sending and the other items in there. So again, the numbers highlighted currently will probably change. I didn't want to touch the maximum travel just in case that did change in any line item. Again, with the capital reserve accounts, I want to get a better feel for some of the project costs. But again, you'll see that reflected on Monday night.
So look for that capital reserve number to be in the millions.
Yeah.
Yes.
However, it's not going to change what the
It's not gonna
what the
change,
tax proposal is, right?
Correct. That's it for operations.
And are we going to talk about that stuff? Or
Yeah, we're trying to get some more information on costs.
Yeah, I'll probably try to put that in the weekly update.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about priorities too, like which ones.
Yeah, I know we talked about that
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah, just want to solidify some estimated costs.
Okay, can we go back to the work session? Actually, that's about it. We already reviewed the HIP.
Oh, yeah, second public comment. Make a motion. We open to the public. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I do have a question.
Sure. Mr. Marsh.
Before I
Who
said
seconded
that,
that?
with the
Michelle.
pending sale or hopeful sale of Lakes, of the old Lake School, how much are you anticipating, hoping to get for that?
Forgot all about that.
And what would that might do to this shortfall problem?
We have absolutely no idea what we're going to get for it. We haven't set a minimum bid. We're going to review the bids once they're submitted and either accept one or reject it. I don't think anyone has ever gotten did you ever get any indication from anybody of what they believe the value was? Or, nah, so I don't have a number for you.
Is there in the auction a minimum bid threshold?
No, I don't believe I don't know what they set the starting bid at, but I'm assuming we never instructed the auction company to have a minimum bid, but I would assume they would set the initial bid, the first bid at $50,000 or something like that. Like I would think they would set it at something somewhat reasonable.
Does the board reserve the right with the contract with the auction company to reject
Yes.
any and all bids?
Yes. Yeah, so we can either choose to accept, reject, that's it.
Is there a date on
The 27th to the 29th, it's a timed auction, so. So yeah, maybe we'll get a windfall from that,
I'm just saying
and
we might look at.
we might, yeah, in April, be able
Now, what
to
happens
adjust the
with the money
budget.
from that sale?
That's a good question. The money from
Yeah.
that sale.
Yeah.
It would go into general operating, I would think, right?
I mean, I was going to go on another cruise.
Right.
No, that would it should be able to be allocated into the budget based on the board's resolution of accepting the funds, approving the sale. I don't think it would have to go right back into capital reserve because again, it's just funds that we're getting. So it could potentially offset some of the funds
Well,
in the budget. However, we're receiving it this year, so it would then not really have an effect on next year's budget. Other than earmarking it and saying we're not spending X dollars because then we'll basically roll it into fund balance.
when you sell something on Gov Deals, where do you put that money? Just in a general,
Typically the general
General.
fund,
I would think
just
it's done.
miscellaneous income, because we
It's
don't
in-
plan on that money and we don't bank
it's
on
a
that
capital asset, right? So-
money.
But theoretically, if we got $292,000 or more dollars for it, we could anticipate those
292,580.
funds and use
Exactly.
that for tax relief, right?
No.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
I'm sorry, Bill, is there any other comments or questions?
Now, that's my question.
All right, seeing no other members of the public, I make a motion to close. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. There was one question that a board member had sent to me regarding, I'll just touch on it real quickly, recess. And did you get that? Yeah.
So that was Chrissy's question, right? In regards to temperature?
Yeah.
We were in the middle of the budget. I saw that it came in, so just refresh me.
So like, there are certain days it'll be freezing out, and like Main Road and Ritter won't go outside. But then my first grader would be like, it was so cold outside, we were outside. I was like, you were outside today? And then, so like certain, I guess if each principal sets when the kids go outside, but shouldn't we just make it across the board?
Well, I mean, I think they do use.
The older kids are going outside, I mean, that's.
I'd have to have a conversation with them. I think they do use freezing, 32 degrees,
No,
but
he said, he sent me an email. He said if the feel is between 30 and 90, the kids are outside.
all right. Well, but then it becomes, okay, is it the wind chill? Is the ground wet? You know, it
so-
would be hard to set a standard, to be real honest with you.
So you already had asked that question to one of the
No,
administrators?
Mr. Coe.
Mr. Coe
I
responded
sent
to
him
30
an email that I had spoken to him prior
Oh, okay.
about like different times that the kids have gone outside. Like my daughter had, I think it was last week, she had eczema all over her hands because she was outside all week. I didn't think they were gonna send them outside. Normally there's gloves and a hat. And I was like, there's no way these kids are going outside because Ritter didn't go outside. Yep, every day they went outside. It was like freezing out.
Mr. Kovic's hardcore with the kindergarten, he likes to toughen them up.
So I was just saying, like, I don't know, maybe, you know, with all three schools, there should just be one guideline on when they go out and they don't go out, instead of each principal making it up.
I just think it would be hard, to be honest with you. There's so many variables. Like I said, if we set, I'm making this up, 40 degrees, let's just make it up. And then you got 40-mile-an-hour winds like you had today, and it's feeling like it's 30, you know, and you know, you may be a parent that thinks the kid should be in, and then Alicia may be a parent to say, heck with that, get outside and play.
And
So-
also you have the clientele of the kids. You have sixth graders that are going to school in sweatshirts every day. They're not wearing coats and they're not gonna
Then
send
you
them
got sixth graders
outside.
that are showing up in shorts in the snow,
Right.
right?
There were a lot of sixth graders today.
That's
So-
right. So, I mean, each
I
principal
think
has
it's, you
to
gotta
look
let
at all
them
of that
make their
and they know.
professional judgment.
Yes, I agree.
I think that's the, you know, trying
Where
to set a
the
standard and follow a
toddlers,
standard that
You know,
was
the
gonna be
parents
hard.
are bundling them up in their snowsuits and their hats and their gloves.
Right.
And the sixth graders are too cool for all of
cool for
that.
school.
So Mr. Peters isn't gonna.
For little kids.
Well, that's principals.
Correct.
I say send them out.
Me too.
Teachers don't want.
So anyway, hopefully I answered your question, Chris. Lost my agenda.
That's it.
All right, anyone have anything else? If not, make a motion, we adjourn at 8:15. Do I have a second? All in favor? All right, see you on Monday.
Hey, take some food
I am. I'm
with
going to
you,
get one.
please.
I've got to do something about